in any second. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Classroom Without Walls, episode 116. And today on this show, we interview leading social media digital marketers, entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners to come here and share with us their best practices, strategies, so that we can future-proof our businesses. And today we have a super special guest. But before I introduce our guest of honor, I have a quick announcement. And those of you, if you know my story, I'm an educator. I taught in the classroom for 10 plus years. Now with this crazy coronavirus, everyone's homeschooling. So I have a webinar, a live training coming up on Friday, April 17th at 4 p.m. EDT. And if you are interested in joining us live, I'm going to share the link in the comment section in a few minutes. So you can use that link to save the event directly to your calendar and join our private live training on Friday. So that is taken care of. So today we are talking about customer service. And as I mentioned earlier, we are in this global coronavirus pandemic. Everyone is working from home and so many businesses got affected. I think in the US last year, 10 million Americans lost their jobs. I can only imagine the number on a global scale. So for business owners, entrepreneurs, how can we serve our audience? How can we serve our consumers in this pandemic? And I have, ladies and gentlemen, I have the best, the perfect guest of honor to come to this show and share with us, talk about customer service and how can we serve our consumers, our audiences in this time. And this gentleman is the one and only Dan Gingiss. I wish I had something to make some noise.
Well,
and
thank you.
A dear friend, is a keynote speaker, is a consultant, is a marketing strategist, is the customer service expert. And I have learned so much from Dan, and we connected in person quite a few times at a few different social media marketing conferences. And every single time, Dan blew my mind away in terms of how much he knows about customer service, customer experience, and how we can wow our consumers. So really excited. And I think this is a really good timing to talk about serving our audience in this uncertain time. So Dan, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. Really honored to have you on the show, and welcome. And by the way, we're live on Facebook. I saw a bunch of you are already here. We are live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Periscope, and on Facebook. So let me know in the comment section where you guys are joining us live from, social media wise and geographically speaking. Hey Dan, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. That was an awesome introduction. I really appreciate it. The only thing that you forgot was that we have also shared the only bubble tea that I've ever had in my life. I've had with you.
That's absolutely right. Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you for the great reminder. And so for people who don't know you, share with us, you spent quite a few decades in this space. Customer service, customer experience, and what inspired you, as a marketer to be so passionate about customer service? What's your story?
Well, it kind of came somewhat naturally to me. I like to tell a story about my very first job out of college, where I worked for a company up in Connecticut called the Danbury Mint. And they sell high-end collectibles, plates, dolls, figurines, that sort of thing. And I worked in the marketing and product management department. And one day, it was like 2 days before Christmas, a call comes through to my desk, and it was supposed to go to customer service, but somehow they got to me. I don't know how. And it was this frantic woman who had bought a gift for her granddaughter, and it hadn't arrived. And she was very worried that, Christmas was going to be ruined. Now, because I wasn't in customer service, I didn't have access to her account. I didn't have any of the tools that a customer service agent would have, but I just did what seemed like the natural thing to do. I said, okay, Christmas is not going to be ruined on my account. Let me get your information. What's your address, name, phone number, whatever, and what product are we talking about here? And I promised her I would do whatever it took to get her this item. And so I hung up the phone and I walked over to the warehouse, which happened to be in my building, and I pulled the product off the shelf and I packed it up. And I walked over to our FedEx station and I printed out a label and I literally brought it to FedEx to make sure that it was going to get sent overnight. And at no point did I ask anybody's permission to do this. In fact, I might have broken some company rules. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the policy was on shipping things overnight. I didn't really care. I just wanted to help this woman out and to make sure that Christmas wasn't ruined on our account. And sure enough, the woman was very happy, continued to be a loyal customer. And that story stuck out to me because many, many years later, I've worked at a number of Fortune 300 companies, McDonald's, Humana, Discover Card. And many years later, when I was at Discover, I got recruited into a role that was heading up digital customer experience. And what was interesting is, although I had been in the workforce for a long time, I had never had a pure digital role, and I had never had a customer experience role. So I asked the chief digital officer who recruited me, why did you select me for this role? And he said, because what I've noticed about you, Dan, is that when you're in a meeting, you always have the customer's hat on. You are always thinking from the customer's point of view, and we need to do that digitally more than we do today. And that stuck with me too, because I had not realized that that was something I did. And then when he said it, I started noticing that, yeah, I kind of just walk through life noticing things as a customer would. And I think it's really served me well, and it's made me so passionate about customer experience and customer service.
Wow. Yeah, I see Vicky, talking about such a beautiful story. I know, like, really melted my heart. So really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I noticed that you use customer service and customer experience almost interchangeably. Are those two the same or different? I feel like for most of us, we use customer service. Is there a difference between customer service and customer experience?
Absolutely, there is. So customer experience is the sum of every interaction that you have with a brand. And that interaction could be marketing that you see on any channel. It could be the experience that you have using the product. It could be going to the company's website or using their mobile app, or if it's a brick and mortar, walking into the retail establishment or the restaurant. Customer service, one of my friends likes to say that customer service is what happens when customer experience breaks, because we call customer service when, generally we call customer service when something's wrong. And customer service, therefore, is a subset of customer experience, but it is a critical piece of the puzzle, because after all, when something's wrong with the experience such that we have to call customer service, it's what the company does at that very moment that is going to determine whether we're going to continue being a loyal customer or whether we're going to leave for their competition. So that's why we invest so much money in customer service, and that's why it's so critical that we deliver it well, because it's a key part of the experience, but it is not all of the experience.
Wow, I love this. So besides customer service, what are the other key components of customer experience? Can you share with us?
Yeah, so imagine, think about it from the perspective of, let's say, a fast food restaurant, and let's assume that we're in normal times, not stay-at-home time, right?
But going out, yes.
So we walk into a fast food restaurant, and it would be very easy to say that the one thing that contributes to the customer experience at a fast food restaurant is the food, and that is a very important part of it. But there's so much else going on. So, for example, when you walk up to the counter, does the person greet you with a smile, or does the person greet you like you interrupted their otherwise otherwise pleasant day? Is the food, is the order that when you place your order, do you get the food that you ordered? Is the order correct? Is the temperature of the food good? Is the temperature of the restaurant good? I know you live in Philadelphia. I live in Chicago. You can have very cold winters, and you've been in that situation where you grab that seat by the door, and then every time the door opens, a rush of cold air comes in, and you're really uncomfortable. That's affecting your experience at that restaurant?
Wow.
Do they have all of the, is it easy to find utensils? Is it easy to find ketchup packets and whatever it is that you're looking for? When you go and get your soda from the machine, is it bubbly enough or has it gone flat? All of these pieces all add up. And the challenge with most companies is that even a single miss in any part of the experience can cause somebody to want to leave and go somewhere else. And so it's so important that we look at the customer journey as a whole and all of the things that are influencing the experience, not just the obvious things. And in the example of a fast food restaurant, the obvious thing is the food. But I once had a restaurateur tell me that you can have amazing food at a restaurant, but if you have crappy service, you're not going to have any customers. Whereas if you have good food, great food, but maybe not amazing food, and you have outstanding service, you're going to have loyal customers for life. So you have to have that balance. They're both equally important.
Oh, I love this. And everyone just commenting on this restaurant. I agree. I have had like really amazing meals, but the service is just not good, and then just like a big turnoff. So here is, by the way, everyone, if you have questions, my dear friend Peter is in the comment section monitoring everyone's comments and questions. If you have any question, feel free to tag Peter and follow Peter. He's amazing marketer himself. And so here's a question from Vicky. Thank you for joining us live, Vicky. And she asked, do you think all departments are involved in the customer experience? I love that question.
Yeah, Vicky, great question. The answer is absolutely yes. Almost every job at a company, even if it's not directly customer facing, has some impact on the customer experience. So let's think about somebody like someone in the billing department, right? They may never actually talk to a customer, but they're putting together invoices that the customers are reading. Are those invoices easy to understand? Is the language that we use friendly? Does it thank them for being a customer, or does it just say, hey, you owe us money? How do we feel when we get that invoice? So anything that the legal department, right? The legal department almost never talks directly to customers, except so much of what the legal department writes gets in front of customers. All these disclosures and disclaimers and the fine print and all that has a big effect on the experience. And so the law department is in customer experience. The challenge, though, and the reason why Vicky's question is so great, is that if you say that customer experience is everybody's job, the risk that you run is that it becomes nobody's job, because nobody takes ownership for it and nobody is really nobody held accountable for it. So I do think that you have to have a person or people in your organization that are in charge of the entire experience, and then you have all of your employees, no matter what department they're in, execute on that experience.
Oh, I love that answer. Thank you. And I kind of want to transition to, this is what we are talking about today. And I know you also actually had a podcast episode, devoted to this topic. So right now we are in this global crisis, and so many businesses are being affected. And so my immediate question for you as a marketer, so experienced in this, is, should we stop selling? Like, how should we approach selling, like promoting our services or products in this time? And should we stop? Like, what's your perspective on this?
I think that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it by referring back to a line that you've probably heard me say a number of times in keynote speeches or wherever, which is that a remarkable customer experience can be your best marketing.
I can finish your sentence.
I know you could. And so what I mean by that is that when we create memorable, remarkable experiences for people, they actually do the marketing for us. They tell their friends and family that they had a great experience with us. And that is so much more credible than any marketing campaign we can put out as a brand, right? I mean, let's be perfectly honest. Unless you are Starbucks or Coca-Cola or Disney, do we really want another email from somebody? Do we really want a social media ad from any company? Like, do we want people to interrupt our Facebook feed with an ad? Of course we don't. As consumers, we really don't want to. And so there's very, very few brands that I think have the sort of unlimited permission to do that. And so at a time like this, look, every industry, it's very difficult to sell. I'm a keynote speaker, right? We're not selling any speeches right now. And it's difficult to even talk to people because we don't even know when conferences are going to be back. And but at the same time, we can provide value to people. We can call just to check in on our customers and our clients and just see how they're doing, because we're all humans. We're all going through the same thing together. So it's never been easier to show some empathy, because you know exactly what I know what you're going through. Because you're stuck at home, you're working from home, you've got kids running around, you've got a cat running around. I have all those things too. And so you and I can relate on a human level, even if we're not doing business and I'm not trying to sell you anything. And the thing is you will remember that when this time passes and we're back to buying and selling things. So I think it's really key right now, if you haven't checked in on your customers yet to see how they're doing, just how they're doing on a personal level, you're missing a really big opportunity to make a connection with them that doesn't require you to sell anything. It just requires you to talk to them.
All right, I love this. And I know you are an expert on this. Can you give us some examples and how certain brands are really rising above the noise? Like at least for me, I have been receiving like generic responses from airline companies, from this and that. Everyone is kind of talking about the same thing. Did I hear an echo?
You sound great to me.
Okay.
So we shared a lot of examples on our experience of this podcast episode, and that's episode 94. If anyone wants to go listen to it, it was all dedicated to COVID-19. But one of the ones that stuck out to me, I mean, just like when we had all those privacy changes a couple years ago, and we got all the emails about new privacy policies and just flooding our inbox. A couple of weeks ago, we all got emails from pretty much every company that has ever acquired our email address to tell us about how they were responding to coronavirus. And in the matter of a couple of days, we learned more about cleaning processes than we ever wanted to know. We got directed to the same CDC website probably 100 times. And a couple companies, though, decided that they were going to do something different. And one of the ones that I highlighted in the podcast that I thought did a great job was Charles Schwab. So Charles Schwab is an investment company. I've been a client of theirs for a long, long time. And Charles Schwab did not tell me about how they were cleaning their offices, and they did not tell me how to get to the CDC website. What they did do is they acknowledged and recognized that I was probably really nervous about such a volatile stock market, and that my hard-earned investments and my IRA and everything was going up and down and all around, and that probably was making me nervous. And then they went on to explain that they had all of these services, both that existed and a couple that they had added, to help me through this volatile time as an investor. And what was awesome about it was that it was actionable and helpful information, but it was also pertaining to their company, right? So I go to Charles Schwab to invest, and so they're helping me with investing. They're not pointing me to some resource that has nothing to do with investing, right? And that's what a lot of companies defaulted to, is they're like, well, we got to send people to the CDC website, and we got to tell them that we're using XYZ cleaning products and whatever. But it wasn't really thinking about, where is the customer right now? What are they worried about? And I think Charles Schwab nailed it, because I was really worried about a volatile stock market, and I wanted to know what I might be able to do about it. And all of a sudden they show up with all these tools and information and resources. And I found it really valuable, and I think much more highly of them now.
That's a great example. Really shows, they are thinking on our behalf. I love that. I know in the podcast, I'm going to share the link in a second. And you also talked about quite a few examples from airline companies. And do you remember? Maybe you can also share, because I think that industry is being like heavily affected right now.
Oh gosh, I would not want to be in the airline industry right now. Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you an example that we did talk about, which I think was funny. So I happen to be on the email list for most of the major airlines, because I've flown them at least once before. So I got all the emails, and the first round of emails, it's like they all got together and literally wrote them together. I mean, they all said exactly the same thing. We're going to improve our cleaning processes. Your safety is very important to us. Here's the CDC's latest, whatever. And then two things I noticed. One was Delta, and Delta came out with, and Joey talked about this on our podcast, Delta came out with an email that didn't just tell you that they were cleaning the planes. They actually shot a video showing the cleaning process, the enhanced cleaning process. And it turns out they used this fogger that was pretty interesting to see, that kind of fogs up the whole interior of the plane and kills all the bacteria and all that sort of stuff. And it makes you feel more confident because you're like, okay, they're on this. They're doing what they're saying they're doing, and I feel good. Compare that to the airline that I fly more often, and as you know about me, I don't name brands when I'm going to say something negative about them, but it's one of the other major airlines in the U.S. And if anybody has ever been to business school in the United States, for sure, and probably around the world, you've done the Harvard Business Case about Southwest Airlines. And one of the things that you learn is that the very fastest that an airline can turn around a plane between flights is 30 minutes. That's the fastest they can clean a plane and get people in and out. Well, after all this first round of emails comes out, my airline, I was still flying because it was before we all stopped, and my flight was late. And you could tell that they were nervous about it being late. And so I watched the people disembark off of the plane, and the very second the last guy came off, they started boarding.
Oh my God.
So what happened to all these enhanced cleaning procedures that you were talking about? Which we must be skipping over just because the plane is late, right? And so think about how I felt. I would have gladly waited another half an hour
100%.
while they cleaned that plane, right? Because I just wanted a clean plane, and I would have gladly waited. But instead, they said one thing and they did another. And there is no better way to annoy a customer and to get them to change their loyalty than to say one thing and do another.
Oh, I love this. I think we just have to not just give others lip service, especially in this day and age, but actually do it. I love those two examples. And I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. And here's the question. I'm just copying and pasting questions from Peter. Sorry, the name is actually not from me. It's from Dan. Thank you for joining us live, Dan. And so he said that companies such as Disney and their parks, and they have extraordinary focus on the customer experience, and they have this because they train their people. So what is the top reason other companies don't train their people? I love this question, kind of talking about internal employees.
Yeah, it's a great question. Always happy to see another Dan or Daniel on the show. So thank you for that. And I actually think this question relates really well to Vicky's question, which was about is customer experience everybody's job? And I think the companies that are missing it don't view it as everybody's job. And so they're not training their customers, or excuse me, they're not training their employees. One of the questions that I got quite often when I was promoting my book, which is about social media and customer service, was if I'm hiring an agent to handle, say, Twitter customer care, should I hire somebody who knows social media or should I hire somebody who knows customer service? And to me, the answer is extremely obvious, but to companies, it isn't always. And in fact, a lot of companies made the wrong choice. They went and said, well, we're going to hire a bunch of millennials that know social media really well. But the problem is, and no offense to millennials, but the problem is that they hired people that didn't know customer service, right? And the key is, if you know how to deliver good customer service, if you know how to be empathetic, if you know how to solve problems, be patient, not let emotions get to you, all the things that a good customer service agent can do, you can teach them how to use Twitter, right? That's not that hard. But can you teach somebody empathy? Whew, that's a little bit tougher, right? And so I think, Daniel, that's part of it, is that it's very difficult. It is often very difficult to teach people that. What I think Disney's done so well is that they treat, they don't even call their employees, they call them cast members, right? So every person is part of the show. It doesn't matter whether you're sweeping up the floor or whether you're the person putting on the Mickey Mouse costume. You are a cast member. And just so that word makes me as an employee feel like I'm more invested, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing that they teach a lot from what I've read is that every action that the employee takes, you should assume that somebody else is watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
You assume that someone's watching, and man, is that great advice for any company really doing anything. I mean, if you're providing an experience to a customer, is it something that you'd like for them to talk about on social media and tell their friends about? Is it something you'd like for them to pull out their camera and take a picture of or video and share with the world? If it's not, you should stop doing it, right? And you should come up with a different experience that you, in fact, want and encourage people to share. So I hope that answers your question, Daniel. I think it is something that more companies should do. They should empower their employees to do what I did when somebody called me and needed that product the night, the next day. That you don't need permission. One of the articles I wrote about recently on my website was about Amazon, and a contact of mine who has to remain nameless sent me a picture of a sign that is up in all of the customer service contact centers at Amazon. And it talked about basically the 6 customer service tenets that Amazon really stands by. And one of the things that it talked about was essentially that we should do anything we can to try to solve the customer's problem. And it empowered everybody working there to solve a customer problem if that's what they need to do, and that you never get in trouble for solving a customer's problem. And I think that's the kind of culture that leads people, when we think about Amazon, we think about a great experience almost every time. And it's because all of their employees are empowered to provide it.
Totally. And I mean, human beings were emotional beings. And when we receive quality service and leave a positive emotional star in our heart, and we'll never ever forget that. I want to ask you, so far we talked quite a few examples from big companies. Many people join us live. They are small business owners, entrepreneurs like myself and you, or freelancers. And so how can we adopt this, customer-centric approach, like to serve our, VAs and like people who are working with us?
The first thing to remember is without customers, we don't have a business. So there is nothing more important than we can be doing than focusing on our customers. So if there's something else that's taking priority over your customers, you got to really ask yourself what you're doing as a small business or as an entrepreneur, right? And if you don't have time for your customers, they're not going to have time for you. It's as simple as that. And so, I try to practice when I preach. I make sure that I respond to people really quickly on social media when they email me. I try to be responsive because I teach companies how to be responsive. It is one of those things where you may not feel like you can afford to hire somebody to manage your social channels. And yet, if you've got people asking you questions or commenting or complaining or complimenting you, and those are going unanswered, you're really doing a disservice to your business, because these are people that want to engage with you. The two main types of feedback that we get, both in real life and on social media, are positive in the forms of compliments or negative in the form of complaints. And what's interesting is most companies tend to be afraid of complaints. And you've heard me say this too before. I know that we shouldn't be afraid of complaints, because people who complain do so because they actually care. If they didn't care, they would just simply move on to our competitor, which frankly, most people do. Most of the time when a company angers us, we just leave. We don't ever tell them we're leaving. We just go and we get a new credit card, or we get a new cable company, or we get a new mobile services company. And we don't even tell the old one that we're leaving. But when people complain, they're basically saying, look, I want to still do business with you. I like doing business with you, but you've disappointed me. Now, can you fix this so that I can keep doing business with you? And if you're not interested in complaints because you're afraid of them, then you have this great opportunity to keep a customer, and you're going to end up losing them. On the flip side, what social media has given the opportunity to for customers that didn't exist before, especially in the telephone channel, is the opportunity to compliment a brand. And I just saw your face light up when you were talking about how when you get a great customer service experience, it touches you in your heart and you want to tell people about it. That's exactly right. In fact, the research shows that people are more willing to share positive experiences than negative ones. It's just that we don't have very many positive ones. And so you don't see it that often. But what absolutely drives me nuts is when people compliment a brand on social media. They take time out of their day to tell everybody in the world about how great this company is. And what does the company do? They ignore them. They don't answer back, right? Which is like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, that's what we are all as marketers. Word of mouth marketing is the holy grail. It's what we're trying to get. And then it happens and we ignore people.
So true.
Do that.
So true, so true. And I have two quick stories. One is, so right now we stay at an apartment. And so because of the coronavirus, and the leasing office actually packed some really cute popcorn and they delivered to every single house. And when my children discovered that, they opened the door like, wow, popcorn, very cute bag. They're like, oh my God, I never ever seen them enjoy popcorn that much. And they really enjoy it. And then to us, like, you just feel like someone actually cares about you. And the second example I want to share is, sorry, that's my cat jumping. And, so the second example is, talking about social listening. And I always do this exercise with my own undergraduate students. So every semester they will tag brands and say they love them for ABC reasons. And maybe like 10% out of all the brands that are being tagged will actually respond. And they see something really positive. They really love the brands. So like I so hear you on that. It is so true. Yeah.
10%. That's remarkable to me. I mean, it is the joke I love to tell whenever I'm speaking in front of customer service agents is, especially if they've spent most of their career on the phone. I always say, like, how many times did you pick up the phone? Did you answer the phone? And and the person on the other line said, well, I was just calling to tell you how great of a job you're doing. Right. And everybody laughs because it never happened. Nobody ever called a toll-free number just to tell them they did a great job. And yet it happens millions of times every day on social media. And companies literally don't know what to do with it. And a simple like, a retweet, a response saying, hey, we love you too. Thanks for for being a customer. When Joe Average customer gets a verified account from a big brand that they love or a small brand that they love and mentions them by name, they feel like a king or queen for the day, right? They're like, wow, XYZ company responded to me. I am Mr. Big Man on campus. It really does make people feel good because after all, they've given something to you. They've given you a compliment and at some social risk, right? When we put it out in Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, we're using our own social capital to compliment a brand.
Yeah.
And I think the least that people can do is respond back.
Oh, I love this. And here's a question. We shared a few really kind of positive examples. And by the way, thank you for joining us live, Trey from the UK. And so he asked, what are some really kind of biggest mistakes or common mistakes that people make? And I would love to add, like during this global pandemic, did you notice any really bad examples in terms of customer service?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally the biggest mistake is not listening to and not responding to customers. So we've sort of talked about that, but the listening part, which you mentioned, is so important because there's so much conversation out there and we can learn so much about what we're doing well, which means things we should be doing more of, and what we're doing not as well, which means things we've got to fix. And we actually have plenty of opportunity and ability to change the sentiment about our brand, no matter what size company we are, if we focus on doing more of the things that people like and less of the things that annoy people, right? And so I think that's the biggest mistake because it's so easy to do to just listen to what's being said. And then secondly, I always say respond to everyone. You have to be able to respond to people that take time out of their day to contact you. I think right now, in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's the mistake is either what we call phoning it in or checking the box, which is basically, okay, we're going to send the email because everyone else is sending an email. I think that's a mistake. And also not showing a human side. I mean, if anything, we've all learned during this time that no matter your gender, your race, your age, your socioeconomic background, what country you're from, what religion you are, every person on the planet right now is going through this experience together. It's one of those rare things, first time in our lifetime, and first time in our parents' lifetime and our grandparents' lifetime. And so that requires a certain level of just human empathy that when it's absent, I think it's much more noticed right now because people are a little bit hypersensitive for good reason now. And yet the reverse is true too, is that just a little bit of human empathy goes a really long way with people now, right? And so it's I published something today on my site about how to keep employees engaged, and we were talking about everybody's on Zoom calls and whatever, and I said, look, it's okay to have some fun. There's one Zoom call that I'm on every day where on Fridays we're all asked to bring a glass of wine to the Zoom meeting. It's late in the afternoon, right? And everybody does a virtual toast, and it's great. It makes you feel like you're part of a team and whatever. And so it's okay to just relax a little bit and to have some fun with people and to just try to make somebody smile today, because that goes such a long way when everybody's stressed and everybody's overwhelmed right now.
Oh, I love that. And my own children, they actually do lots of Zoom chats with like different classes online and their friends. And on Zoom, you can do that virtual background. Yeah. So all the children, they have been having lots of fun and just like see them laughing, and it's really, really nice. Yeah. So, and this is a great question from Peter, and thank you for asking. And so how much should we rely on automation services in terms of like customer service?
It's a great question, Peter. I think automation has a role for sure. It is very useful in answering standardized questions. The example I always gave when I worked for McDonald's was, how many calories are in a Big Mac, or something that frankly the customer could probably Google and get the answer to. I think automation is great for that because, frankly, it saves the time for the human agents to work on more difficult problems. Where automation falls apart, though, is where we try to replace the human engagement, because I believe, at least right now as a society, and even more at this very moment in time, the desire for human interaction is just simply too strong that it can't be fully replaced by automation. And so the best thing I can suggest is make sure that when you automate, that a customer can easily transfer to a human being if that's what they want, and focus on using the technology, the AI and the machine learning, to help your agents become better agents, become more intelligent agents, versus trying to take their jobs away. Because if you think about, I always love to imagine a customer service agent sitting next to like IBM's Watson, right? It knows every question, the answer to any question in the entire world, which means now that your agent knows the answer to any question in the entire world. So does that mean we don't need the agent? No, it actually means the agent can focus on what they're really good at, which is a human-to-human interaction with the customer. And because they don't have to worry about looking over a whole bunch of screens or checking a bunch of FAQs, or if you've ever been in a contact center, you notice that customer service agents have Post-it notes all over, right, giving them hints and stuff. They don't need any of that because the answer to the question's right next to them on the AI machine. They just have to focus on talking to the customer, showing empathy, and helping to solve the problem, which is frankly exactly what the customer wants.
Oh, I love this. And I definitely I wonder if everyone in the live audience has a similar experience. Like sometimes when I have a question, and it's not like a cookie cutter question or standardized question, I really just want to talk to a human being, and they give me this long list of articles, and I click this, click that, and I can tell it's a bot. Like, it really got me frustrated. I was like, sometimes, oh my God, I don't want to work with you anymore. Like, do you even have any human beings on service? I need to talk to a person. So I think that is when you actually overdo. And a kind of different situation. I don't know how you feel about So for me, when I know like an influencer or anyone, they kind of outsource their social media engagement. They hire different people. I know when I want to engage with you, Dan, for example, but
Yeah.
I know if this person is now doing this by him or herself, and that made me feel like, I don't know, being cheated a little bit. I don't feel like the interaction is genuine. So what do you think
Yeah.
about that? It's kind of just like follow up on the automation part.
Well, first of all, I want to tell the audience that if you ever
I'm
tag
not talking
me
about
or
you.
no, me or I, you are always going to get us responding because we don't do that stuff. So I'm not a fan of that. I think, maybe for some really big celebrities. I mean, I can imagine that a Taylor Swift can't respond to every single fan that tags her, and yet if somebody was responding from her account, I do think that would make people really happy and probably go a long way towards her brand. But man, for just sort of your run of the mill business influencers, I don't think so. And especially what annoys me is when people talk about how important it is to engage and to be responsive, and then they hire somebody else to do it. That's where I really sort of lose faith in people. So it's not something I subscribe to. It's not something I'm going to do. And the business equivalent to that is, and I highly recommend this, is no matter what size business you are, when you're responding to people on social media, sign it with a first name or with some initials so that we know that it's a person. We already know it's a person, right? You don't have to pretend that it's the ivory tower that's responding. We know there's a person, but let us know the person and let us know that the person's name is Joe or Sam or Jill or whatever it is, because that immediately creates a human connection even when we're not face to face with somebody.
Yeah, I so agree. And I know ICM Rush, I work with them. They do this so well. And when they use their brand, but they also add a personal name. So I'm actually connecting with the person on a personal level. And I love that. Yeah, great example. Yeah, I know. Dan is the most authentic person out there. And he's really amazing. And here is another question from Trey. He asked, what would you say are the top things a business needs customer service wise to help expand quickly and attract customers who are willing to invest? I'm not quite understanding this question. You are smarter than me. Are you understanding this question, Dan? So I guess he's asking ways to serve our audience really well that we can attract investors.
Yeah, and you know what? Before I answer it, Trey, I'm going to go back to the distinction that we made earlier between customer service and customer experience, because I think with customer service, the idea is retaining a customer because the customer's already the person's already your customer. They're having an issue. If you successfully resolve the issue and put them back either in the place they were before or maybe even a better place, they're going to continue to be loyal to you. You talked about bringing on new customers. And again, I think that's customer experience, not customer service. Although I think there are certain companies that have a reputation for really good customer service, and that is a reason why people want to do business with them. So I can see it having an acquisition effect. But to me, that's where my saying about a remarkable customer experience can be your best marketing comes into play, is that when we talked about before that people share negative experiences and positive experiences. But I'll ask the people who are watching live right now, try to remember the last time that you had such a remarkable experience with a company that you couldn't wait to share it with everybody. And now try to remember the last time that you were disappointed with a company. I guarantee you remember the disappointment faster because you've had more of those. You've had more disappointments. So if we as companies can create experiences that are memorable, that are positive, that people say, man, I love doing business with your company, they will share that because it's a rarity. Unfortunately, it's a rarity. As my friend Jay Bear likes to say, or no, actually, I think this is my friend Joey Coleman, my podcast co-host, likes to say the bar for customer experience is on the floor, right? And so we don't have to high jump over it. We just have to take a little step over it, and we're going to be doing a lot better than our competitors and than others out there. Just what we were talking about before about responding to compliments. We're like, wow, that's not a hard thing to do. And yet no one's doing it. Only 10% are doing it. So if you're part of that 10%, you're going to stand out, and people are going to see that, and they're going to want to do business with you.
Yeah, so true. Especially right now, right? This global pandemic, people are already so afraid, so much stress, so much fear. If you do a little bit extra, guess what? Those people are going to remember you. They are going to pay back, and I so agree with you on that. Yeah, yeah. And you talk so much, Dan, about customer centric business model. I wonder if you can explain that business model to us a little bit more. What do you mean by customer centric, and how does a business that adopts this model function differently from a business that follows a traditional business centric model?
That's an awesome question. And you're absolutely right. Those are the two models. It's business centric or customer centric. And business centric says, how much more can we sell to the customer? What do we want to tell the customer? What do we want them to know? How do we get them to buy? And a customer centric business says, what do our customers want? What are our customers telling us? What do our customers need? How can we fill a void for our customer? How are our customers feeling? It's just a completely different set of questions. And like I said earlier in the conversation, when my boss realized that I just sort of naturally think about things from a customer perspective, that's the skill that you have to develop. Is, it's very easy to say, let's go back to our friends, the airlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in the finance department said, hey, I got a great idea. Let's charge people to check bags. We're going to make billions of dollars on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the executives were like, yeah, all right, great, billions of dollars. We like billions of dollars. Do you think they talked to any customers before they did that, right? Because it obviously pisses off every customer that they've ever had. Now, as it turns out, since every airline did it, the customers really didn't have a choice. But the reality is, in a lot of cases, customers do have a choice, and they will very easily move to a competitor if you are making the customer uncentric choice. So before you make a decision to change something about your business, to launch a new product, to change a policy or procedure, think about how the customer is going to receive it. Think about the problem from a customer perspective, and don't be afraid to ask customers. They will more than likely be willing to help you solve the problem in a way that is customer centric. We all understand that airlines have to make money and make a profit. We get that, right? We just don't want them to do it with nuisance fees. We don't want them to do it nickel and diming us, right? We'd all probably rather the cost of a flight go up by $10 for everybody than have to be nickel and dimed every time we want to add on another feature, right?
That's right. That's right.
So talk to your customers and they'll tell you how to do it.
Yeah. I love those examples. Can you give us kind of more like business eventually will go back to normal? I hope. We just don't know how long. So after, like, how should we kind of transition between where we're now, like, into the future? How should we like slowly like emerge, like as the pandemic is fading away, kind of looking into the future, and how should we like come back and without losing that customer focus?
Well, it's really interesting. It's a great follow-up to your last question, because a lot of companies right now, and frankly, it's understandable because of the situation we're in, but a lot of companies right now are looking inward, and they are very company focused. How do we stay in business? How do we not, go bankrupt? How do we not lay off all our employees? And these are very, very important things. And to me, the two biggest constituencies that every company has to focus on right now are their customers and their employees, because without either one of those constituencies, we don't have a business. We need the employees when we emerge from this, and we sure as heck need the customers when we emerge from this. And so I think, to me, there has never been a more important time to be customer centric and to focus on customer experience, because as consumers, we're looking around right now, we're all nervous. We all don't, nobody likes the unknown and the uncertainty, right? And frankly, we don't know when this is going to be over. We know it will be at some point. We just don't know. We don't know, is it a month? Is it a year? Is it longer than that? We have no idea. So there's uncertainty. And as consumers, as humans, we look to places for calm and confidence. Some of us look to religion. Some of us look to, meditation or other things. What we know we can't look to is the television, because we've got both the government and the media, but neither of which are providing calm or confidence for anybody, right? We can go to our friends and family, but another place that we can go to are to companies that we trust and that we do business with. And we look to them for calm and confidence. And we look to see, well, which companies are taking care of me right now and helping me through this versus which companies are not even paying attention or have a terrible experience or what have you. I posted something the other day about, grocery stores obviously are going through massive transitions right now. Right? Nobody's in the store. All of a sudden they're going to all delivery and pickup and what have you. And one of the things that most grocery store chains have missed is when we try to go, we all understand now, okay, we're not going into the store. We're going to order it to pick it up, right? But when you only give me today, tomorrow, and the next day as the choices, and all of the slots are filled, what am I supposed to do? Like there is no answer. And on several grocery store chains' websites, I've gotten to a point where I'm just stuck. So what do? I go to a different grocery store chain. I mean, that's the only thing I can do, right? Versus a grocery store chain that either says, hey, we're going to book 2 weeks out, or we're going to let you know when there's an open space, or whatever it is, or we're sorry, there's no open space. Here's what you should do, fill your cart and whatever, instead of just leaving me hanging there because there's no space. So I think so even in a time of crisis where business is completely changing everything, and I feel for the grocery stores, you have to pay attention to the customer perspective of like, well, okay, but I'm trying to give you my business right now. And I understand if this is difficult for you, but I want to pay you money, and you're literally standing in the way of me paying you money. And anytime that's happening, business owners, you should stop and say, hold on a second. The whole point we're here is for customers to pay us money. And if we're making it so they can't do that, we probably should fix something.
I love those examples. Great examples. And so here's another simple question, kind of follow up on what you mentioned earlier. And thank you for joining us live, Alice. And she asked you, why do you think businesses are so afraid to ask their customers like for feedback, for their opinions, and why they have that fear?
I have to compliment you, and your listeners, because these are some of the best listener questions, viewer questions I've ever gotten. So this is fantastic. I think that it's because they're afraid of bad feedback, of negative feedback. And it's why often we don't ask for feedback in our regular lives nearly as much, right? And I'm a believer, I always have been, that feedback is a gift. I want you to tell me what you like and what you didn't like. I don't need you just to pat me on the head and say, great job, Dan. I need you to tell me, hey, I loved this part of your speech, but this example that you shared, I didn't really get it. That's the best feedback I could get, because I'm going to go fix that example, and the next time I'm going to make sure everybody gets it. I often ask, because I share, in a given keynote, I'll share 15 case studies. I ask people, when you give me feedback, I want you specifically to tell me which stories you remember and which stories you didn't relate to. And what's happened is, over time, I have this big library of examples. I'll stop using the ones that aren't hitting the mark with people. And I now know, over time, I know exactly which stories people are going to react to. And I even know when in the story they're going to laugh, or they're going to whatever, because I've asked for the feedback. And if you're an employee and you haven't talked to your manager in a long time, how am I doing? Can you give me some constructive feedback? One of the things I always did as a manager when 20 plus years in corporate America, every review that I wrote, I gave people 3 strengths and 3 opportunities. It forced me to come up with things that I wanted them to work on. It gave everybody a really useful feedback, because frankly, when people tell us we're awesome, we're like, yeah, we know. But that doesn't really help. You're awesome. Of course, we know he's awesome, but that doesn't help you do anything different, right? You're already awesome. But if I say to you, hey, and I'm totally making this up, you shouldn't wear a shirt that matches the color of your microphone. I'm making it up. That's at least something where you can say like, oh, okay, I'm going to do something different next time. And the other thing is, I always made sure that since every employee got 3 strengths and 3 opportunities, it wasn't about like, oh, he gave me, there's 3 things wrong with me. I wonder, did I have 2 things wrong with her or 5 things wrong with her? Like, am I better or am I worse? No, everybody had 3 opportunities. So the answer, Alice, is people are afraid of negative feedback. They don't
So
want
true.
and we should all embrace it because it makes us better.
So true, and I want to go back to this point. You can tell I love red color. Look at the lower
I
third.
think it's great. It was the only thing I could come up with in
No,
this
because
moment.
I want to share this because when I designed my business, I immediately thought, what is my favorite color? But later I was doing research. Actually, in education, the color is like orange, actually orange for creativity. I was actually thinking about redesigning my logo. And at that point, I really realized I made a mistake because my business is only about me to a certain extent. It's not always about me. It's about the people I'm serving. And that was really a big aha moment. I'm so happy you mentioned that. And I think especially as entrepreneurs, small business owners, we got so absorbed into what we do, my favorite color, my favorite logo, everything's me, 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 me. So I love that point you mentioned. Yeah, I love that example. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. And it's almost an hour. I know Dan is amazing. Everyone, give us some hearts and make sure you follow Dan. I have been sharing Dan's social media handle. So let me bring that up again. So share with us like any parting piece of advice regarding customer service, customer experience during this global crisis. Any parting of piece of advice you want to share with us?
Well, I'm going to quote my late grandmother who used to say, "This too shall pass." And I think that is a great words to live by right now. Again, we don't know when, but we are going to get back to some sense of normalcy. And although the world is probably always going to be different, I just read something about how a local community near me is capturing stories of people living at home and of isolating because they've figured out that this is a historical moment that historians are going to look at for hundreds of years. They're going to look back on right now. And if you stop and think about the gravity of that for a second and you realize, not that anything about this is positive, but it's an amazing moment in our history. It's amazing for negative reasons, but it's an incredible moment. And I think that the companies that are going to come out of this are the ones that don't lose sight of the fact that we're here for our customers. That's why we are in business. Without customers, we don't have a company. And our customers are all human. They're all going through a difficult time right now. They're all struggling with kids and pets running in and, cats bumping microphones. We're just all used to that at this point, right? And so we cut people some slack. We cut them a break, maybe more than we did before because we're all going through it together. So like I said, never been a better time to focus on customer experience and to show empathy. If you have not talked to your customers in the last month, please get off of the live stream, get on the phone, get on the email, send a postcard if you have to, but ask your customers, how are you doing? How's it going? We know you're stuck at home, or is everybody okay? We care about you. That will go such a long way to developing lifelong loyalty.
I love this. In education, I always tell the parents, your children's academic school learning is only the tip of the iceberg to get them to become future ready. So from what you mentioned, like what we do, like the technical part, what we are selling is only the tip of the iceberg. But how we are treating, how we are packaging this entire thing, or EQ, how we are treating human beings, that's what gets us really further in the business. So I love that. So where can people connect with you? I have been sharing, guys, just in case you missed this. So this is Dan's Twitter handle.
Well, thank you. And now that everybody knows how to spell my name correctly, dangingiss.com is my website. So if you go there, you can learn more about me, listen to my podcasts, read my blogs, see my speakers reel, anything about me, and also contact me. It's a great place to contact me. And as I very well knows, if you hit me up on Twitter, I will definitely respond to you. So I have not been on Twitter while we've been talking. So anybody that's wondering, how come I haven't heard from you? I've been focused on the conversation, but I will get right back to it.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. You are just so amazing. Every time I talk to you, I can always learn so much. So thank you for an hour, incredible hour. And thank you so much, everyone from Nigeria, from UK, from Australia, from literally all over the globe for joining us live. I appreciate you guys. And stay safe, wash hands. And I hope to see you next Wednesday, same time, same location. Bye.